So welcome to this video. My name is Alex and this video is about good news, and there is so much good news. News which should make us feel joyful, happy, safe, free, because all the bad news is lies. It's really important to understand that the media is working overtime to fill our mind with scenarios and visions of darkness and negativity and fear. So it's basically a bad news machine. The media is like a bad news machine, and it's doing that on purpose, because if it didn't do that, if the media wasn't pumping out bad news, then we would see that in fact good news is all around us. We would see that life is good news, that life is a blessing, life is rich, it's a gift. There is no downside to being alive when we are close to God, when our hearts are open to God's love. There is no downside. So the media has to make up lies. The media has to fabricate visions of darkness, future visions of suffering, anything that makes us afraid. So the media is the bad news machine, which we can all live perfectly well without. We don't need the media in any way. We don't need it at all. You know, we could switch it off and never look at another social media post or another YouTube video or another news headline online, etc., etc. We could switch it all off, and you know what? Our lives would improve greatly. We would feel more connected to life. We'd feel more connected to divine truth. We'd feel freer. Our mind would feel more spacious and not always filled with information that we're told is important, because none of it's important, because we don't need negative information in our brain. It's not designed that way. It's not designed for that kind of information. Our mind, our heart, our body, it's all designed for God's love, for harmony, to have harmony flowing through our mind, our heart, our body. We are vehicles, we're vessels of love. We're designed for love. We've been built for the current of love to be flowing through us all the time. That doesn't mean we'll always be smiling, we'll always be happy, always be jumping for joy. It just means there will always be harmony inside. Harmony, a very subtle thing. It can be a very subtle thing. Our mind can be very still. Our mind can be empty, not thinking of nothing, and we can be at rest. But underneath all of that, the background is deep, deep harmony, because that's the essence of reality. That's the nature of reality, which is divine. Reality is divine. Now the false reality, the illusory reality, which is created by our thoughts, all these complicated thoughts, sophisticated thoughts, thoughts of the future, thoughts of the past, thoughts of who we are, thoughts of what life is, what the world is, all those thoughts, that's the illusion. And the media feeds that. The media is like, it's basically a pipeline. It's feeding our ego, our negative thinking mind. It's feeding it all day long with bad news, more negative information, so that we can kind of fortify this reality, so that reality becomes stronger and stronger until it seems like that's real, and the reality of love is just insignificant, just a daydream. That's what the media is trying to do. The media is trying to get us to build our house up here, or to get us to live up here and dwell always in here, where it can continue to tell us how things are, and you know what's real and what's not, and what's going to happen in the future. That's programmed. The mind can be programmed. The heart cannot be programmed. Of course, it can be fearful. The heart can be fearful and angry because of what's going on up here. But the heart can't be programmed like the mind can. So the mind is like the interface for the media to control you, to influence how you feel, can influence your emotions, and ultimately influence whether you're in a state of harmony or disharmony. This is all it comes down to. If you consider all the emotional states, all the states of being, all the mental states, things you might have read about, things you might have heard, wise people say, all of it comes down to either being in harmony or disharmony. So when you're in harmony, and that can be any range of emotions, joy, peace, happiness, gratitude, love, comfort. Anyway, all those wide range of emotions, they are all harmonious at their core. They're it's a harmonious vibration within our being. Yet when we step out of that harmony, of course we have to experience disharmony, because we can't experience neither. It's impossible for us to experience neither one nor the other, because we're not built for that. We're not designed for that. We have to be experiencing something. We're experiential beings. We can't just not exist. And so we're either in a state of harmony or disharmony. And if you look at yourself, look at your own life, be more aware of how you feel in any moment or all during the day, you will see that you're either in a state of harmony or disharmony. Now, the states of disharmony might be very subtle. They can be created by just a thought about something you've got to do, next week, or just a thought about what someone said, or just a thought about anything. Now, of course, thoughts can create feelings of harmony as well, but if we depend on our thoughts to govern how we feel, if we rely on our thoughts to control our heart, then we're going to become addicted to thoughts. And this is what's happened to the human race. It's become addicted to thoughts. Because if you just take thought out of it, take thought out of the equation, you don't need any thinking, you just take all thoughts away, you're left with the reality of love in your heart. That is a reality. The reality of peace, love, warmth, connection to the divine. That's reality. And that's the background that's there all the time. And all we do is we interfere with that with our mind. Our mind just interferes with it. Our mind creates distortion and disharmony in that realm of peace and harmony. So our mind is the problem. Our thoughts are the problem. Listening to our thoughts, getting involved in them, letting them take us down their little wormholes of reality. It takes us out, it takes us away from our heart, where reality is always present. Reality is always there. And that reality is peace, harmony, stillness, balance. And balance is obviously a key word here, because so many things take us out of balance. Being too active, being too inactive, getting too much sleep, getting too little sleep, eating too much of this kind of food, or eating not enough of that kind of food, and so on, all through every aspect of our life. Everything, it affects our balance. So it's really important to see what takes you out of balance, what makes you more irritable, more tired, more stressful, more anxious, more lethargic. See the things which make you feel those ways and change them. Because then if you see what the negative influences are on your state of balance, and then you see what the positive influences are, like going for walks in nature, playing with your children, being creative, laughing, communicating with friends, all those things which enrich this state of harmony, which actually make you feel balanced, which make you feel really whole and fulfilled in your heart, all those positive things. And of course, then we need to replace the negative things with the positive things. For example, instead of spending an hour watching YouTube before we go to bed, then we spend an hour talking to our loved one, our partner, or our children, or doing something that's inspiring, like being creative, or reading poetry, or reading the Bible, or reading any spiritual text which makes you feel enriched. See, we have choices all day long, and we can choose this or that. We can choose harmony or disharmony. We can choose the things which encourage greater harmony, or we can choose the things which encourage greater disharmony. And food is a big part of this as well. Eating too much sugar, or eating sugar full stop, eating too much acidic food when we benefit greatly from eating more alkaline food, which is a really important one, by the way, because I'm a nutritionist. I've been studying this for 20 years, so eating more alkaline food is a really important one to help you feed the harmony, because that's what it's all about. It's about feeding the harmony and not feeding the disharmony. Stop doing things and consuming things and putting things into your head which are feeding the disharmony. That includes the media. The media is just completely feeding your mind, your heart, your emotions, feeding all the disharmony in those places. It's designed to do that. You know, you may have heard in the Bible the image of the beast. It talks about the image of the beast and people worshipping the image of the beast. The image of the beast is the screen. The screens that everybody's watching to get their information about what's happening in the world. The news, you know, YouTube, whatever. All these screens everywhere that people are looking at thinking, you know, I need to know what's happening in the world. And tell me what's real, Mr. Screen. You know, please give me some information so I can feel safe. The screen is the image of the beast, and the beast is communicating with the whole world through the screens, because the beast system is the system of fear, negativity, pessimism, doom, all the negative emotions. The beast is about conveying those emotions to you. That's what the beast wants to do. The so-called beast, you know, this beast system, the evil, if you can call it evil. That's what evil wants to do. It wants to pull you into its negative realm of misery, negativity, disharmony, disease, fear, loneliness, isolation, insecurity. So that's the bad news. That's where the bad news is coming from. The good news is reality is divine. Reality, actual reality is divine. It's deeply harmonious. It enriches our heart. It's beautiful. It's love. It is love. And that's God's reality. And we don't have to strive for it. We don't have to be worthy enough to receive it. We don't have to prove that we're worthy of it. We don't have to work for it. We just have to attune to it. So stop looking at the darkness. Stop giving our attention to the darkness. Stop believing the darkness. Stop worshipping our screens, the image of the beast. Stop it. Stop putting your attention there. And you put your attention with God. And you listen to what God tells you. It's good to read the Bible because God is constantly reminding us of how protected we are by Him and how safe we are when we're close to Him. And any other spiritual text which really gets you in touch with reality. But I prefer not using texts, but I prefer just relaxing, opening my heart and feeling the presence of love, feeling the presence of God's goodness, the good news. That is the good news, that reality is for you. Reality is loving you. Reality is everything you've ever wanted, everything your heart desires, which in fact isn't something you can understand. It's a feeling. It's a sense of connection to your spiritual parent. That's what your heart desires. It desires that connection to God. And all we have to do is choose it. Stop choosing the darkness. Stop choosing the image of the beast, the image of fear. Stop choosing disharmony, because all that's making us feel disharmonious. Stop choosing disharmony with our food, with the words we use, with some of the music that people listen to is really, really negative. And music is powerful and it creates a really strong sense of disharmony in the body when we listen to aggressive or dark music. So it's really, really important to feed the harmony, attune your heart. Your heart's like an instrument, and it attunes to the information, the energy of the information that you put into your mind, on the sound you listen to and the words you use. It attunes and vibrates to those positive messages, that positive information, and we feel the harmony that we're supposed to feel. And when we're feeling it, we know it's reality. Because we've been built for it, we're designed for it. It's nothing strange, it's nothing unknown. It's not like, oh, what's this strange positive feeling I have in my heart? We instinctively know that it's God's love. We instinctively know that it's God's peace. If you don't like the word God, you don't need to use the word God. But it is divine. It is not just something you conjure up biologically with your emotions and your mind. It's not just electrons firing. It's not just biology and neurons, etc., etc. It's reality. It's God's reality. And we're attuning, we're being receptive. We're making ourselves receptive by coming into a state of balance. We're making ourselves receptive to reality. Then all we have to do is stay open. Stay open to that reality. Stay open to the harmony. Stay open to the peace. Stay open to the joy and the love. Because we're always pulling ourselves away, always pulling ourselves back into our mind, back into our thoughts about tomorrow or the next moment or what we should have done or what we shouldn't have done, or something else, or yeah, but I know I feel all this peace and love, but what about the media? What about what the media is saying about what's going to happen next week, or what's going to happen, this society is going to turn into a dystopia. What am I going to do? That's how the media has conditioned your mind, poisoned your mind. And you need to come away from that. You need to come away from that dysfunctional mechanism of the mind which just wants to feed you, just wants to live in these negative stories. You don't need to be there. You don't need to dwell in those visions of the future, visions of darkness. Because peace is available in every moment. All you have to do is be aware enough to allow yourself to be there. Because no one else can bring you into that space. No one else can bring you into that space of love, into that space of peace. You have to choose it with your physiology, with the things you put in your body, with what you give your attention to, with the music you listen to, with the things you watch. You choose it with all of your choices. You're either choosing more harmony or you're choosing disharmony. You're choosing to feed the harmony or you're choosing to feed disharmony. The Native Americans have an interesting story which I like about feeding the good wolf or the bad wolf. Because the story goes that an old Cherokee was talking to his grandson, and he was telling him that inside everybody there's a good wolf and a bad wolf. The good wolf is all the negative things: greed, selfishness, judgment, hostility, vanity, etc., etc. And the good wolf is all the positive things: love, compassion, kindness, tolerance, patience, peace, understanding. And the grandchild asks his grandson, which wolf wins? Which wolf wins the battle? And the grandfather says, the one you feed. And this is fantastic. It's a fantastic understanding that we are feeding something all the time with our choices. With every choice we are feeding something. And if we're conscious, we can make choices that feed the harmony, feed our sense of balance, feed our sense of health, and in turn those things will enable us to receive God's love. Because that's what it's all about. That's what our heart needs. That's what we're longing for. We just want to receive God's love. Because without it, there is something missing. We are designed to receive God's love. So when we're not feeling it, when we're not receiving, when we're not appreciating, when we're not feeling that there's anything worth feeling grateful for, then we're really missing something vital, really missing something incredibly vital, and we suffer. And so, coming back to God's love, remembering God's love, opening up to God's love, and making ourselves available for God's love. This is what brings us into this space of understanding. Understanding what life is about, understanding the magnificence of what God has given us and of who we are, who we actually are, and what we need to do. Understanding these things, because there are things we need to do, and there are understandings we need to have. And so that's why it's good to read the Bible, because it gives us these understandings about God, and understanding that we are safe and protected and that He loves us. A bit like the story of the prodigal son. God loves us and is so happy when we turn back to Him. He's not a God of judgment and punishment. He's not waiting for us to make another mistake. He's waiting for us to turn back to Him and open our hearts to Him, because He loves us. So I'll just end by saying, it's a long journey. I've been on a long journey over the past 23 or 4 years, from not really having a spiritual connection, not really knowing anything about spirituality, to opening my heart, becoming stronger, becoming a stronger person, learning of God, experientially seeing God and learning about what God is like and learning how to come closer to Him. It's been a process, and it's been a long process. But the thing which has transformed everything and made everything move much quicker, because I was on a spiritual path. I was a spiritual seeker, or what some people call the New Age, but I don't like that term. But I was a spiritual seeker, and then, then maybe 8 years ago, I said yes to Jesus. That's all I did. I just said yes. I had no issue with Jesus. I never had a problem with Jesus. I never had a resistance to Jesus or anyone who was sharing the message of Jesus. I never pushed it away. I just had never thought I needed Jesus in my heart. And so one day, 8 years ago, I just said yes. I said yes to Jesus because it was just a natural thing to do. And since then my understanding of what we need has become very, very detailed and very, very, how would you say, very profound. And I have a very clear understanding of what Jesus does and why Jesus is so important. I could go into that now but make this video a very long one, but I don't really want to do that. I'll make another video. My next video hopefully will be about that. But Jesus is like the tuning fork. Jesus is like God's tuning fork. So imagine our hearts are vibrating in this very disharmonious state, which most people's hearts are without them realizing it, when there's fear, anger, resentment, grief. So our hearts are kind of like resonating in this very disharmonious way, this very negative way. And then Jesus is like God's tuning fork. God bangs the tuning fork and puts it on our heart. And that literally tunes our heart back into God's frequency of love, of peace, of happiness, positivity. It's like a tuning fork. So we just call on Jesus, and Jesus' presence, which is a light. Jesus is a light now. He's not a man. He's not walking around the planet in a robe with a beard. Jesus' presence is now in the form of light. So he comes to us in the form of light, spiritual light, which we can sometimes perceive in our mind. I do often when I'm lying in bed at night, and my wife does too. She perceives Jesus' presence as a bright light, like a bright golden light. So Jesus comes to us. When we call his name, he comes into our heart and he comes into our mind, and he just attunes us back to peace, back to seeing this reality of harmony and experiencing this reality of harmony, reminding us of God's love, just tuning us back in to this harmonious realm, which is God's realm. So for me, that's the kind of most simplistic way I can describe Jesus. Of course, there are many other descriptions and ways of seeing it, but for me, that's a very accurate one. Just call on Jesus, and he tunes us back into that state of harmony. So I'll leave you with that. I thank you for listening to this video and watching me. I hope I've been some help to you. I'm sharing these things just because I hope they might be helpful, and I like communicating. So if you've enjoyed what I've been speaking about, please leave a comment and stay tuned for my next video. Okay, I wish you well. Thank you, and God bless you.